listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
What's going off? Hope you're well, and thanks for tuning into my Straight to Video podcast. So today's chat turned out to be one of the most fun, interesting, and just downright rewarding conversations I've had on the show for a while. Today's guest, Ally Begg, has had one of the most varied and incredible careers for the past 3+ decades or so, and he isn't slowing down one bit. He's continuing to push and reinvent himself whenever he needs to. Now, depending on what your interests are or what your background is, you might know Ally from his incredibly successful career as a sports broadcaster, particularly when it comes to his beloved Aberdeen Football Club, but he has also worked for MUTV in the past, honing his presenter skills. Or, as I'm sure a lot of you out there, you might know him from his time in 90s boy band Bad Boys Inc. Whatever part of Ally's career you dive into, you will hear that he's a living, breathing soundbite. Everything he talks about is insightful and rewarding, and there's something to take from all of it, so it was a joy to put this interview together. If you enjoy our chat, which covers a whole host of topics, then be sure to check out Ally's YouTube channels, both ABTV and The Accidental Pop Star, or you can find him on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with everything he does. But right now though, please enjoy my straight to video chat with the awesome Ally Begg. How are we doing?
I'm all right, fella. How are you?
I'm working on my 90s boy band curtains at the moment.
Fucking hell, mate. I've not had one of those haircuts for years.
Brilliant. How's your day going?
Yeah, good. It's a holiday here in Austria, so the kids are off today.
Sweet.
So my son had a game this morning, and it was a big step up in class for them today because they had to play the feeder club, which is affiliated to Red Bull Salzburg. So the kids they were playing today were of a very high standard, and they got absolutely dicked. They got smashed.
Is it going to teach them a good lesson?
Yeah, because Lenny was quite down in the car on the way home. And I said to him, look, I said, now you really understand the level that you've got to get to. And I said, do you think you're at this level? And he went, no. And I said, right. I said, you know what you've got to work on. Your tackling today was great. Your positional sense was great. The kid you were up against, he never got anything out of you at all day. I said, but your passing and your composure and your positioning sense today was all over the shop. So I said, you know what we need to work on, mate?
It's good to get a wake-up call every now and again like that, isn't it?
Yeah, because he's doing really well and he's improved massively. And if he keeps going at the trajectory that he's going at, he's got half a chance, Rob. But today was a wake-up call, and I'm glad it happened to him because it's made him think, you know? Mate, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you, Rob?
I am 51.
All right, okay, so we're of the same generation, and I'm 54 this year, so we're of the same generation. All right, cool.
Is it going too fast for you now? Was I at 30, and every 10 years, mate, it's like, holy shit.
Mate, it's ridiculous. I can't get my head around how fast time is disappearing. And when you have kids, like Lennox is now a teenager, and Harvey's now 10, and I'm like, how? How is this even possible? Yeah, I think from the age of about 45, life just accelerated ×3. Just disappeared. It just disappears.
So thanks ever so much for doing this for us.
Oh, mate, it's an absolute pleasure. No problem.
You're someone who's had like a massively varied life and career from where you've lived and different occupations you've done. I mean, certainly stuff that maybe wouldn't have gone down too great if speaking to a careers officer in the mid-80s. From, I want to be a footballer or a pop star or something like that. As a kid growing up in Aberdeen, could you ever imagined what your life was going to put your way?
No, not at all. I had one focus as a kid, which came not long after we first moved to Aberdeen in 1979. After I found my love for football, I wanted to become a professional football player and play for Aberdeen. That was my ambition. That's all I focused my energy, my time. I was completely committed to the game, to the detriment probably of my education in school. So that's what I wanted to do. And I knew very early, all I want to do is become a professional football player. And I just focused everything on trying to achieve that ambition.
How old was you?
My love for Aberdeen Football Club started when I was about 8 or 9 years old. I went to my first game when I was 9. And when I went to secondary school, I started playing for a local boys' club. So I started playing at the age of 12 to a fairly decent level. Up until then, I'd only really played for my primary school. But once I started playing boys' club football on a Sunday afternoon, that's when I really started to think I could develop as a player.
What was your position?
I actually started as a striker because I was quite tall. for my age, and I just stopped growing round about 14. So they stuck me up front, but as I got older, they put me further back. So I actually ended up playing sweeper for most of my boys' clubs. And then when I ended my sort of playing career, when I played semi-professional and played for the North of Scotland schoolboys, I was training with Aberdeen. I was playing as a fullback by that point. So in my late teens, I was a fullback. But yeah, I really started to develop once I started playing boys' club football.
What do you remember about that first match you went to see as a fan?
Yeah, the first game that I went to, it was the final game of season 1980-81. Aberdeen were playing Kilmarnock, who at that time were already relegated. And what I remember quite clearly is it was Joe Harper's final game for Aberdeen. And Joe Harper is an Aberdeen legend. He's our all-time leading goal scorer and an absolute legend of the game in Scotland. It was his last game. And we got beat 2-0. And I wasn't ready for the emotional impact that it had on me at the age of 10 when we lost the game 2-0. I was almost on the verge of tears. But that game hooked me. I remember the seagulls. I remember the colours. I remember the excitement. I remember the smell of the Bovril. I remember queuing for a pie at half-time. My dad allowed me a half-time pie.
I was going to say, did you get a pie?
Yeah, my dad got me a half-time pie. I just loved everything about it. I was hooked. I was hooked immediately.
Was all your friends as into football as you were?
Yeah, very much so. I grew up in a very small village just north of Aberdeen, about 13 miles north, called Newborough. And we had a very tight community. And because the oil and gas industry at that time was really booming, a lot of people were moving to Aberdeen, and a lot of families, young families, were moving into the village because they built 2 new brand estates on the village. So we moved into one estate and a lot of other friends moved into the other. So I made really great friends who remain friends to this day, almost as soon as we moved into the village. And we all shared the same interests, which was Aberdeen Football Club and playing football.
Am I right? You moved from Holland?
Yeah, so my family moved us to Holland, or my dad moved us to Holland in 1975. He got a job working for a small charter airline company based out of Maastricht Airport in Holland. Because my dad always had worked in aviation. He'd always worked around the commercial side of aviation, hence why we ended up in Holland. My brother was born in Holland. I first went to school in Holland. I actually spoke the language fluently up until we moved to Aberdeen. And then I have no recollection of this at all, Rob, but quite bizarrely, when we moved to the village, our neighbours were Dutch and they would speak to me in Dutch. And my mum said that I just refused to converse with them at all in Dutch. And she said that she thinks it was my coping mechanism after moving away from Holland. I have no recollection of it whatsoever. And it's such a shame because I don't know the language at all. And I really wish I'd kept it.
Have you ever been back?
Oh, yeah, many times. Yeah, many times. Yeah. Went back with the band. We did a number of gigs, a couple of TV shows in Holland. I went back with the family a while ago, and I've got friends that live in Holland as well. And also, I go through Schiphol Airport quite a lot to fly home to Aberdeen from Munich because it's the best way for me to get back to Aberdeen. So I'm always going through Holland.
Did you remember the language when you was in the band? Because you'd have been like the main dude then.
No.
Oh, damn.
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And people would speak to me like journalists and fans, and they would speak to me Dutch, and nothing, mate. Just absolutely no recollection of it whatsoever, which is a real shame. I really wish I'd kept it up. It's a real regret of mine, I've got to be honest.
As a kid, like, you're a sponge. My brother moved to Wales when he was like really young with my mum, and yeah, he took up the language like super, super fast. It blows your mind as a kid how fast you pick that up.
Well, it's so interesting with my own kids. So their mother is German. She's from Austria, but obviously they speak German. And when we were living in Qatar, their mum would always speak to them in German. I would always speak to them in English, but they wouldn't speak back to her in German until we moved here. Once we moved here, they picked the language up so quickly because they already had an understanding of it. The two of them now, I would say they're 95% fluent and doing really, really well. They picked it up so quickly, Rob.
Quick question though, favourite World Cup growing up?
I would have to say my first memory is 1978 because when we were living in Holland, because Archie Gemmill scored that famous goal against Holland, I was sat on my dad's knee, and when that goal went in, he came out of his chair like a bullet out of a gun and sent me flying. So that was my first ever sort of football memory. But I remember the 82 World Cup very vividly when we played Brazil, Russia and New Zealand. I also remember the 86 World Cup in Mexico.
86 was a big one for me, yeah.
Yeah, but Spain, 82, I would say, because we beat New Zealand. We got smashed by Brazil, but David Neary scored that incredible goal. And I think we had to beat Russia. And we made a terrible defensive error, which put them through to score, I think, was the second goal. And that put us out the tournament. But yeah, I do have vivid memories of World Cups, actually.
Yeah, your memory for details is insane. Does that come in handy with your football presenting and stuff like that?
Yeah, like my girlfriend Lindsay, she's always saying to me, you've got such an amazing memory for football. But it's always been with me from the age of, as I said, from the age of 8. I just love everything about the game. And it's because it's my passion and it's my love and it's my job. It's almost like a telegraphic memory almost. It's like I can read something and it'll stay in there about football. I've just read an autobiography from a friend of mine. Like all the information that he's saying in this autobiography, I can clearly remember. So obviously sometimes memories fade and I have to be prompted about something. But once it goes back in there, then it usually stays there.
Nice. Did you collect the Panini football stickers then?
Oh, mate, I was all over it. I was all over it.
Did you ever fill an album?
No, never able to fill an album from cover to cover, but I wasn't far away. Round about, I think it was season 83, 84. I was missing, from memory.
I love it. Remember this as
I
well.
do remember it because I remember filling every Scottish team. I remember that. I remember at the time, the cost of a packet was 10p.
I was going to say 12p.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in the ballpark.
Yeah, and my dad always gave me pocket money on a Saturday to either go and buy records or buy whatever I wanted. So if I had enough money, I would buy records or I'd buy Panini stickers.
Brilliant. Okay, then speaking music there. So how much was music on your radar growing up? So you went into the world of pop music, but you said you'd be buying albums by Sex Pistols and The Cult and all that kind of thing.
How can I put this? I had a taste in music which was probably like no other for that age. It was very diverse, but I found myself very quickly liking music, punk music. I was right into punk music when I was early. And I remember watching the old Grey Whistle Test on BBC Two at a young age and getting into bands like the Sex Pistols, very early U2, because the second album I ever bought was War by U2. So I was right into that type of music as a youngster. And then as I started to get a little bit older, I started to really get into ska music. So Madness, Bad Manners, The Who. I loved The Who. I loved The Jam. And then latterly, I really liked the Style Council as well. So that was my music taste and my music scene. One of the first albums I bought was AC/DC, Highway to Hell. Absolutely loved it. And I remember when I bought Nevermind the Bollocks from the Sex Pistols, my mum made me take it back. She was absolutely horrified.
Just the album title or when she heard you playing it in the bedroom?
Everything. She was absolutely mortified. And latterly, as I got a little bit older, I started to get Beastie Boys and I bought the Beastie Boys album. She made me take that one back as well.
Where would you buy albums from? Was there like a local independent shop?
There was a shop in Aberdeen called One Up, which was an absolutely fantastic record shop just off Union Street. And once a month, my dad would allow me, before we go to the football, he would take me to One Up and I'd be basically allowed to buy a single or an album. And I would ultimately buy an album. So I would always get my music from One Up. But then as I got a little bit older, then the big sort of high street chains started to come in, Our Price, HMV, these type of record stores. So I get all my music from there.
Was you a vinyl or a cassette guy?
Well, vinyl, yeah, big time. I had an old record player from my grandfather on my mother's side because they moved up to the village after my grandfather unfortunately had a stroke. So my mother moved my grandmother and my grandfather up to the village. And they actually ended up staying just round the corner from us. But as part of the move, my grandfather decided that he wanted to buy himself one of these, these really fancy stacked hi-fi systems at the time. Record player in the top, double cassette.
That was success right there.
It was proper. It was proper. But because he bought that, he had this spare record player and he gave it to me.
Obviously, football, massive thing for you. It led to trials for Burnley and Blackpool, I believe. What was the point though when you knew that wasn't going to be a career? How do you handle something like that when it is your love and I guess, I don't know, what is that situation?
It was my first taste of real disappointment and I didn't know how to handle it and I didn't know how to cope with it because wanting to become a professional football player was all that I wanted. And when Aberdeen said no to me, after I'd been training with them for a number of months, I was so shocked and so disappointed. I cried all the way home in the car and I didn't know what to do. And subsequently, since then, I've done a lot of reading about it. I've written a book about it. What I needed at that time for my parents, and this is absolutely no criticism of the way they parented me at all, because the whole process of writing the book is making me understand how to deal with your own children's disappointments. And what I did not need at that time was, you'll be fine, because that's what I got. You'll be fine. I didn't need that. What I needed was I needed to understand what the next step would be. Because all of a sudden, my dream was taken away from me and I didn't know what to do. All of a sudden, I was left in a situation where I felt like I lost my identity at the age of 15. Do I stay at school? Do I leave school? Do I try and get a job? What sort of job? Because I don't know what I want to do, because all I wanted to do was become a football player. In hindsight, I wish my mum and dad at that time had said to me, okay, Aberdeen have said no, but maybe there's other clubs out there who won't say no. So now rechannel your energy and your focus to go again, work even harder, hopefully get scouted by another team, get a trial at another team, and work your way towards maybe playing professional football for a team that isn't Aberdeen. Because then I would have been able to refocus my brain. But because I didn't get that sort of advice, I was completely lost. I was totally and utterly lost. And I remember vividly feeling lost at the time. It's very strange for someone at the age of 15 who had put all his efforts into become a professional football player and then all of a sudden not having a clue what to do next. And that's the position I found myself in. So what I had to do was, this was now probably the first stage of what was reinvention for me. Because Rob, obviously I've had to reinvent myself time and time again. And that for me was the first time that I really experienced having to go through a reinvention. So it was like, okay, what do I now want to do? And that's where it became challenging, because I just didn't know what to do next.
When you got that turned down from Aberdeen, though, did you understand why? Did you suddenly feel like, I'm out of my league here? Or did you understand the reasons for it? Or was it just like, they should have picked me? Was there a confident arrogance as a 15-year-old kid, or what was it?
No, not at all. Not at all. The complete opposite, because I felt out of my depth. From the minute that I first started training at Pittodrie on a Tuesday and a Thursday night with who were the best young players in the region at that time, for my first ever training session, I felt completely out of my depth. And again, I didn't know the terminology for it at the time. Subsequently, I've learned it. That was when imposter syndrome first reared its ugly head for me. And I didn't feel that I belonged there. And I felt that I shouldn't be there because I didn't think I was good enough. So I had to go through that process as well, trying to convince myself that I was a good player, that the reason that I'm training with the best players in the Aberdeen region and training with the schoolboy forms, the kids who are signed to Aberdeen as youngsters, is because the scouts obviously saw something in me where they invited me to Pittodrie to try and develop me as a player with maybe an opportunity to sign me. But I never saw it like that at all. That sort of thinking never really entered my head. There's times when I kind of diss myself a little bit because I wish I had more intelligence and more maturity at the age of 15 to understand that. But what that has done now, Rob, it's now given me the tools to help my youngsters who have ambitions of wanting to become professional football players. So I'm now in a very fortunate position where I've been able to use my own experience to help guide them and advise them through the process.
I would imagine as a dad, that's almost feels better than had you got it then.
Right. Just going to say, so as much as I had to go through that disappointment at the time, and as much as it was gut-wrenching, and it was, at the time, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, in hindsight, I'm glad I went through it because it's put me in a really strong position to help my own children.
So from footballing, you got into modelling.
Yeah.
I love it. It's amazing. And that would bring you down to London, I believe.
It did, yeah.
How was it like landing into London for the first time?
Mental.
Was that like right at the beginning of the 90s or very late 80s?
Yeah, so in 1991, I moved to London. I moved to London with a friend who was already, so Martin was already a model at the time. He was signed to Models One, but he was moving to London from Aberdeen to go and study, I think it was the media at college, I think in Harrow, if my memory serves me correct. So because he was moving down there already, it made perfect sense for the two of us to actually move to London. So I had to go through a process of trying to get into an agency, but that all happened because I got spotted by a Japanese modelling agent while I was doing the Scottish hair show for my hairdresser in Edinburgh. So I was basically walking down the catwalk. The modelling agency spotted me, asked for me to come to London to have a meeting with her, which I did. She wanted to send me to Tokyo, but for me to go through that process, she wanted me to try and get into an agency in London. That's what she recommended. So Martin and I actually came down to London for a long weekend.
Come on the train or the bus.
How did we come down? I think we came down on the train. And we spent, I think, from memory, 3 days in London. And we targeted basically every single modelling agency. And I swear to God, Rob, this is absolutely true. And I know it sounds like it's part of the narrative, the Hollywood narrative and all that. I promise you it isn't. This is absolutely true. I was rejected by every single agent. And I only had one more to go. And that was Lorraine Ashton, IMG. And by that point, I was completely deflated. You know, your ego takes such a battering because you're just getting rejected time and time and time and time and time again. So it was really difficult. And it really, not that I needed to be brought down to earth, but it really gives you a sense of, mate, seriously, yeah, you need to wake up and smell the coffee. This is pipe dream. So we went into Lorraine Ashton, and the guy that saw me, I wish I could remember his name, but I can't. All I remember is he was from Brazil, and he was a really, really nice chap. He said to me, I think you've got something. I like your look. And yeah, we'd like to take you on. Mate, I couldn't believe it. Honestly, I could not believe it. So they took me on and they basically asked me to move down to London as soon as we could. And Martin and I came out of Lorraine Ashton. And what I remember, as you come out, there's like a metal spiral staircase that took you downstairs. The two of us nearly fell all the way down these stairs because the two of us were so excited. And I think it was only a matter of weeks before we made the move. Martin and I packed up all our stuff. My dad hired a white transit van for us with a guy who said he would take us to London. So we packed up all our belongings, jumped in the van and drove to London, and that's how we got going.
What was London like around that time, 91?
So we moved to Chiswick. Well, what we did was we subletted a flat from a friend of Martin's who was actually part of the Buddy Holly story. She was part of the chorus. So she was away on tour, which meant that her flat was completely empty. So Martin and I took it over, which was perfect. And it was on such a nice street in a really nice area. So for me, it was like moving from home to home. I didn't really feel any different. But as soon as you start your castings and you go into your agency and you're traveling in and out of central London on the tube and buses, all of a sudden, that's when you realize there's a very, very big world out there.
Yeah. Being a model, that led on to the autumn of 1992. You get an audition for what would become Bad Boys Inc. You said you initially had no clue what you're auditioning for, as things you were being asked were so odd. Had you known what it was, do you think you would have done it? And do you often have like sliding door what if moments? Like if there was an advert for Boy Band 1, she's like, I'm not going for that. What would have happened afterwards? Do you ever think about stuff like that?
Yeah. Funnily enough, I was only having this conversation with my brother a few days ago. In hindsight, if I could have my time again, I don't think I would have done it. I don't think I would have joined the band. Obviously, hindsight's a fantastic thing and there are no crystal balls. But it was an opportunity. It was a fantastic opportunity that I thought could help change the livelihood of my family and the security of my family.
Because that was the fairy tale story, signed to a record label.
Right. Now, I had absolutely no grandeurs or no ambitions of becoming a pop star. Who the hell am I to do such a thing? The whole notion was ridiculous. It's laughable because I could not sing. Okay, I could dance a little bit. I didn't have any issues about dancing, but I could not sing. So immediately I felt like a fraud.
Yeah, that CV should have gone straight out the window.
Then it so should have done. Because I even remember when I went in to meet Matthew, because Matthew got catapulted in, the poor lad. And all of a sudden is stuck in a studio having to sing something like 22 songs, which we're nowhere near. Our voices are nowhere near it. And what started to worry me, which I kept very private because I didn't want anybody to know, was I already started to have the fear of what happened to Milli Vanilli. I was already thinking that.
I mean, that was only a few years before, really.
And you saw the repercussions of what happened to Milli Vanilli. And I just kept thinking to myself, we can't do this. We can't allow this to happen. If we're going to be taken seriously, we have to sing and we have to support Matthew. Now, at the very beginning, you're very happy to sort of just jump on the bandwagon and just go with the flow because you're given an opportunity and you don't really want to rock that boat, because the last thing you want is to find yourself in a position where potentially you could make yourself very financially stable. So you don't want to rock that boat. But on the other hand, I was stuck in a position where I was feeling like a fraud. So that emotion for me was very challenging and very difficult to deal with, which I kept completely and utterly private. I never spoke to the boys about it. I didn't speak to anybody who was in and around the band at the time. I didn't speak to a soul about it. I kept it to myself. So to go into the band was an opportunity that I thought would present a position where I had watched my father work so hard to try and offer the type of childhood that my brother and I were very lucky to have, where if I could come along and just offer him a helping hand to make him more financially stable, for example, pay off a mortgage or help him with business ventures, then that was why I went into the band. Those were the reasons that I joined Bad Boys Inc. I didn't join it because I wanted to be famous. I didn't join it because I always wanted to be a pop star. That is laughable. It was an opportunity to make my family financially secure. And oh God, how wrong did I get that?
But it's weird though, isn't it? I mean, we're from a generation where I would imagine everybody who you were speaking to in the industry were older than us. It's like, these guys know what they're doing. They're a professional record label. It's like, they must know what they're doing. So there's that trust element there as well. I mean, you were signed to A&M Records. Who else was on their label at the time? Do you remember?
Yeah. Sting, Delamitri, Soundgarden, The Carpenters, The Police, Bryan Adams. So huge, huge artists.
Did you ever cross paths with or rub shoulders with anybody?
We did, yes.
Chris Cornell.
Yeah, I went to a Soundgarden gig, but I never got to meet the guys, unfortunately, because I really liked Soundgarden. Black Hole Sun, I absolutely loved it. I met Justin Curry a few times, played football with him a few times, and then latterly, when I moved up to Glasgow, I met him a few times again. Unfortunately, I've lost touch with him, but I always enjoyed Justin's company. He was just a really, really nice guy and offered very, very good advice. I remember that at the time. But again, mate, it was really strange for me because I was suffering from imposter syndrome. I felt like I didn't fit in, and I felt very uncomfortable talking to these people and being in these people's company because I just felt I didn't belong. I wish I could sort of articulate this a bit better.
Did you ever feel like they were going to suss you out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'll never forget, I was asked to do a magazine shoot with Brian Harvey from East 17. And it was the first time I met Brian, and I was immediately taken by him because he was so down to earth. He was such a nice guy. He was really good fun. But all I kept thinking about in the back of my head was, please don't ask us to sing. Honestly, I was in a panic because I knew why I was in the band. And I struggled with that for a long time. The reason that I went into Bad Boys Inc. is because the producer had in his mind an image for the band. And my image fitted what he wanted. And I was hugely uncomfortable with that. I understand it and I get it, of course. But to be in a respectable, credible boy band, we needed to sing. And we needed to not just sing at gigs, but we needed to sing on our records. And we were not given that opportunity. Even when Matthew, latterly, when we started to become successful and we started to really work on our vocals, and Matthew was absolutely fantastic with us and very, very patient with us. Even when he championed us to Ian Levine, our producer, to say, the boys are ready and we need to get them on. Even Ian Levine, the producer, said, no, I've got my sound, I've got my backing vocals. And all that did, Rob, was that just, for me, made my imposter syndrome even worse.
It sounds like every time you've had these career changes, even if it is something totally new for you, you've gone in, like, if this is what I'm doing, I'm going to be as good as I possibly can at it. So it sounds like you're all working towards being like the musicians you wanted to be.
We knew from day one that we would be up against it because the music that was being produced on our behalf, and now this is just a personal opinion and may not be the opinion of others, I thought it was absolute gash. I hated it. I was not a big fan of it. I remember getting the original dub of Don't Talk About Love from Roachford, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I was really, really excited. Then they gave it to the producer. And the producer's version, and I remember hearing it for the first time, I was so shocked at how bad it was and how different it was that it deflated me immediately. So I knew that from a production point of view, we would always be up against it. And obviously what happened back then was the press stirred up what they were hoping was going to be a rivalry between Take That, E17 and Bad Boys Inc., which was complete and utter nonsense because we were so far behind Take That that we were never, ever going to catch up with them. We released Don't Talk About Love. They released Pray.
Holy shit. Right. Okay.
Now, you put the two of them together, the production value is absolutely night and day. How can we compete with a song like Pray? We can't. So we always knew that. So what that did, Rob, is that it made the lads and I rethink. So what we had to do was we had to blow people away by our performances. Whenever we did gigs, whenever we went to interviews, TV shows, radio gigs, whatever the case may be, we wanted everybody to love us as people, appreciate the hard work that we were putting in despite the sound behind us. So we worked tirelessly. I cannot speak highly enough of Matt because as much as he was a driving force to help us with vocals, the four of us worked so hard in the dance studios to make us as polished as we possibly could. So whenever we did TV performances, people would go, wow, these guys are actually really good. So for me, whenever I look back on TV shows, and I get sent TV shows now, Rob, that I've never seen before. Only the other day, somebody sent me a performance of us alive and kicking that I've never seen before. And on the clip, Emma Forbes asks us about going to Japan because we were leaving the BBC TV studios that morning to go straight to Heathrow to fly to Japan. I have no recollection of that whatsoever. But while I was watching the performance, I text Matt and I said, mate, you know me, I never blow smoke up our backsides, but bloody hell, mate, we were really good. We looked good. We were dressed cool. We're really polished.
That must make you feel good, Annie, when you say you're having...
It does. It absolutely does. Listen, mate, it's taken me 30 years to get here, but I'm incredibly proud of us, considering what we were up against. And it's such a shame because what let us down was the music. And the four of us, we all had huge issues with the music. I also felt at the time that we were mismanaged, and I also felt that we were misguided. And that, for me, ate away at me for quite a number of years. I couldn't give a shit now, I've got to be honest. For me, that ship has sailed. It's water under the bridge. I don't care. There's no point thinking, what if? It was 30 years ago, mate. I don't care.
It sounds like everything you had control of, you're proud of.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah. Where the boys and I were in control of being styled, performance-wise, working on our vocals so that we could sing, that I'm incredibly proud of. What was going on behind us, it was out of our control. And despite the fantastic efforts that the amazing people put in at A&M Records to try and sell us as a band, knowing that the album was poor, I cannot fault their efforts. They did everything to put us in the public eye, and they did everything to make us a success, knowing how poor the product was. So that's where I felt we were really let down. And given the opportunity to work with other producers, which was presented for a while, it could have taken us to a completely different level. But unfortunately, we'll never know.
You did have several appearances on Top of the Pops.
Yeah, we did, mate.
I mean, that was such a make or break show then, which could really launch a band. And it was also a TV institution. How was that for you to get on there? I mean, that's something you tell your parents and all that kind of thing back then.
So what I regret, I have a few regrets about the band. I try not to have regrets, but I do have one or two regrets about the band. And one of them is I allowed the first appearance to completely go by me. The day didn't start well because the security guards wouldn't let us in because they refused to believe that Tony and I were members of a boy band who were about to appear on Top of the Pops because we drove to the studios in his clapped out Ford Fiesta and they wouldn't let us in.
Again, that's perception again of being in a band.
Yeah, it is. And again, I was talking to Matthew about this the other day when we met up. And again, it's taken me 30 years to work this out. It's like, this was our debut single, which had got, I think it went in under 21 or something like that. So we were lucky to get Top of the Pops with a record going in at number 20. So for us to climb the charts, which was going to be automatic anyway, because if you get on Top of the Pops, your record's going to go up the charts anyway. But I had ambitions of the record getting into the top 10. That's what I wanted. I wanted a top 10 hit. So when we went on Top of the Pops, I couldn't understand, first and foremost, why we weren't styled. So the four of us just had on our street clothes. I was wearing the same pair of jeans that I was wearing 3 years previously when I was clubbing in Aberdeen, because I couldn't afford to buy clothes because I didn't have any money. So why weren't we styled? This was our debut appearance on Top of the Pops.
Brand new band for A&M Records.
Right. Now, I don't blame A&M for this. I blame the management for this. Why did they not take control and go, this is huge. This is massive. This is a huge step in their career. We need to get them styled and we need to make them look the absolute bollocks. We didn't. We were wearing our street clothes that we'd had in our wardrobes for years. For me, we looked uncouth, and that was hugely disappointing. I thought the performance was okay, not great. It was okay. Look, eventually it settled at number 19, but I have to be honest, and I know this is going to sound ridiculous, because we've had a top 20 hit with our debut single, which most bands at that time would have given their left arm for. I was hugely disappointed. I was deflated. So that Top of the Pops performance disappointed me. Where I'm a lot more comfortable is I felt that our appearances after that, we were styled, we looked good, our performances were polished. Matthew sang live, and I think we did a really, really good performance on the subsequent shows that we did after that. So the first show I'm disappointed about, but the other three performances I'm very proud of.
You got a chance to make up. That's a good thing.
100%. And we did. We absolutely did, because I think we learned our lesson from the first show. We definitely did.
You did an appearance with Alice Cooper. He was on one of them.
Did we?
Yeah.
Did we?
I've checked the database today.
No way. Did we really?
Yeah. He did the song called Lost in America. Damn, I was hoping for an Alice Cooper story.
Mate, you see, this is where my recollections of those times are so clouded now. I remember meeting Seal and again feeling hugely embarrassed to be in his presence. I remember being invited to Cliff Richard's changing room where he sat us all down and gave us fantastic advice. He was an absolute gentleman. I remember meeting Marty Pello for the first time, who was a hero of mine. So to be on the same set as Wet, 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 who were doing Love Is All Around.
Of course, yeah.
That was amazing. And I loved that. I think we did one with E17, if my memory serves me correct.
Just search Bad Boys Inc. Top of the Pops appearances. They'll all come up into the list, everybody who's on the show.
Right. I'm going to have a wee look at that later, definitely.
Since your time in the band, I mean, pretty much 30 years ago, your journey has continued to diversify from becoming, I think you went on to be a gym instructor, which led to presenting, working for MUTV. But more recently, you've created your own brand, ABTV and the Accidental Pop Star channels, and now a PR firm. Your love of football, though, it's continued to shine through, and I think it's almost like a full circle moment, because I think you've said, is it your grandpa John and uncle were both in football journalism?
That's right, yeah.
Do you think it was almost inevitable that would be something you gravitate back to?
Yeah, for sure. I knew that I always wanted to work in football. So when I left the band, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Again, it was like I was catapulted back to when I was 15. I had no idea. I was completely lost. What I did know was I had to try and unbrand myself from Bad Boys Inc., which, despite my best efforts, even 30 years later, I've not been able to achieve. But now, Rob, I'm completely comfortable in my own skin.
I think it's a core part of your story, mate.
It is, mate. I absolutely agree. And what I do now is I use the band to come on podcasts like your own to tell my story and to have a laugh about it and to tell people, yes, it was difficult. Yes, it presented a lot of challenges, especially for a number of years after I left the band. But my God, I was one lucky boy to have had an amazing experience that so many people would love to have. And I got really, really lucky that it was handed to me on a plate, which I struggled with guilt about that for a long time. But the fact that I can now tell people the stories comfortably, use self-deprecating humor to tell the stories as well, has made me very comfortable about my experiences. But it did take me a very long time to get there.
What do you think your grandfather and uncle would have thought, seeing you come all this way and coming all the way back to it? Is your uncle still around?
Yeah, so my uncle's still about. Yeah, my uncle has been absolutely fantastic. For a number of years now, since I stepped into television with Manchester United, he's always been there for me. He's always guided me. He's always advised me. I just wish that my grandpa was still around to have seen that. He was incredibly proud of me anyway. He was incredibly proud of my brother as well. You know, he loved Peter and I very, very much. And I think about my grandpa often. And I just sometimes wish he had been around to see me get to the level that I did. because I think he would have been very proud, particularly working in Scottish football, which I was able to achieve eventually. So I knew football was a career that I wanted. I just didn't know in what capacity. I didn't know how to get in. So when I started working in the gym to basically start rebuilding my life after the band, I wondered if I could become a sort of a health and fitness advisor to professional football clubs. So I wrote to a number of football clubs back in the mid-90s to late 90s to see if I could get a job at a football club. And it just so happened that at that time, I got offered the opportunity to go to Liverpool and start working on what was called Granada Shop. The ambitions of football were still there, but my trajectory kind of went off on a different angle to then be able to bring it back to get into football broadcasting, which is eventually what I was able to do.
You're like the master of pivoting,
yeah,
switching lanes and developing. You're very active and positive on social media. I always enjoy seeing what you do next and how you put yourself out there. I think it's really inspiring. Who particularly inspires you these days from like an entrepreneurial aspect? I mean, the internet is filled with influencers, but is there anyone who you feel gives valuable lessons and advice? Who you like, oh, I'm interested in what he has to say or she has to say or they have to say? Is there anybody out there in particular?
That's a good question. I've always found myself attracted to football presenters, always. Not that I ever wanted to copy people's styles. I never wanted to do that. I always wanted to be myself. I always wanted to have my own style. That was one of the pieces of advice that Sir Alex Ferguson gave me in the early days. You know, he said to me, be yourself. He also said to me, your position is to load the gun for your guests to fire it. Be very careful of having personal opinions, because unless you've played the game at the very highest level, he said, I'm not sure that you having an opinion is valid. And that has gone all the way through my career. When I was presenting for ESPN in Singapore, whether I was presenting for Setanta Sports, MUTV, I tried not to have a personal opinion because it's not my place. Okay, I've been lucky enough to play the game to a fairly decent standard, but I've not played it full-time professionally. So I don't think I am in a position to offer an opinion. And I don't think it's right for people to offer opinions. I think a presenter's job is to ask questions. And where I also get a little bit frustrated with presenters these days is I think too many of them make statements. Don't make a statement, ask a question. You're there to facilitate a discussion. And your job is to get the show from A to B, B to C, etc., etc. So please ask a question. Stop making statements. And too many people, and I mean this with the greatest respect, have fallen into that trap. And I get a little bit frustrated by it. But in terms of influencers, I haven't really been influenced by anybody. I really enjoy listening to Gary Lineker because he's been in sports broadcasting for as long as I can remember, was an unbelievable football player. And I enjoy his podcasts with Micah Richards and Alan Shearer. And I also have found myself navigating towards people who offer advice on medical issues, particularly after I got sick, and people who offer help when it comes to how to deal with certain situations in life, how to deal with disappointment, how to deal with adversity, how to deal with grief. So sometimes I found myself navigating towards these people or migrating towards these people. And I listen and I try and take it in. And sometimes I take on board advice. But to be honest with you, I've always tried to navigate my way through adversity on my own and use my own strength to be able to do it. I'm not saying for 1 minute people shouldn't seek help, because I'm an advocate for people seeking help. Absolutely. I just think I've been in a very fortunate position where I've not needed help. Despite people asking me to go and get help, particularly after I got sick, people were pleading with me to go and get help. And I thought, no, throughout my life, I've been able to do this on my own. And I think I'm going to carry that trend forward. Now, look, that's not me saying, oh, look how tough I am. Look how strong I am. That's not the message I'm giving. I just felt it wasn't for me. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's like you have the confidence to ride it out yourself. And maybe if you need help later on down the line, you can.
Yeah. Listen, I'm absolutely not adverse to getting help. Absolutely. If I felt it was beneficial. But if I think I can do it myself, I would prefer to go down that road.
Is music or the music industry still a part of your life at all these days? Are you able to just be a fan now, or do you keep an eye on how the industry appears to be working?
Well, my girlfriend Lindsay's a singer. So I love the fact that I found somebody in my life now after getting divorced who is in the industry, has worked in the industry for many, many years, has her own story, has had her own hit record in the genre of garage music, continues to gig to this day, has records out as we speak, and is doing really, really well. And what I love about her is that she completely and utterly gets me. And that was hugely important to me, is that somebody was in a position who gets me, understands the journey that I've been on and the path that I've had to go down to be able to get to the level that I'm at now. And I'm hugely grateful that I found her in my life. So from that point of view, mate, I'm still quite heavily involved in the music industry. But from afar.
Brilliant. Right, I won't keep you much longer. I want to wrap things up, and I want you to time travel to a Friday night.
Right.
In the late 80s or early 90s. Maybe just as you've headed into London, whether you'd have had time to go to the video store or not, I don't know. But what movie soundtrack would you have on your Walkman, and what 3 tapes would you rent for the weekend?
So I'd probably be listening to Top Gun.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That and Rocky IV, greatest soundtracks of all time.
Oh, yes. Rocky IV. Never thought about Rocky IV. Yeah. But definitely Top Gun. Get goosebumps every time I hear the opening soundtrack to the movie. The 3 videos. So the first one I would hire is Quadrophenia.
Nice. Right. Okay.
Second one would be, it's a toss-up between Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi.
Cool. Right.
Yeah. And the third one is Platoon.
Some good choices there. Platoon was massive.
Yeah. Loved it. Still do. Never tired of watching that movie. And if Braveheart had come out in the 80s, mate, I'd be all over that.
So if you had to choose then, Platoon or Full Metal Jacket, you'd have been in the Platoon camp.
Yeah. Mate, I looked at Full Metal Jacket and I thought long and hard about Full Metal Jacket. But that scene with William Dafoe, when he goes down on his knees and Charlie Sheen takes a look out the helicopter and sees him and then looks at Tom Berenger, and that look between Tom Berenger and Charlie Sheen, and Charlie Sheen knows, he knows. That scene for me just tipped it for Platoon over Full Metal Jacket.
What a poster though as well.
Oh, mate, I had it on my wall as a kid.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you get it from the video shop? Do you have to put your name on the back of it?
I did, mate. Do you know where I got it from? I got it from Our Price. I went in, because at the time, Our Price was selling VHS, weren't they? You could buy VHS movies. And I went in and I asked them if they had Platoon. And they did. And the dude gave it to me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Ali, thank you for chatting with me, mate. I really appreciate it.
Oh, pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for your time, mate. And hopefully I'll see you maybe at a Let Loose gig.
Yeah, hope so, mate, because I'm over in the middle of June, and I know that the boys have got gigs in June, so I'm going to try and tie that in.
Awesome, mate. Well, you take care.
I do, fella. Take care of yourself. Ta-ra, mate.
Massive thank you to Ally Begg for joining me on today's Straight to Video podcast. I hope there was something inspiring you could take from that and maybe learn how Ally has bounced back from either disappointments or career curveballs that came his way. Be sure to find him on social media through his YouTube pages or on Instagram and Facebook, and I very much look forward to what he does next. Over at our 80s video shop in Alverton, Derbyshire, there's lots and lots going off, and we're all set to make some really cool announcements about future events we have planned over the summer and beyond. We've just put tickets on sale for a special Chuck Norris tribute evening, which will be hosted by our pals and YouTube movie critics Oliver Harper and Rob Hill. This will be their second event they've done at the shop, and if you're a fan of their channels, then you don't want to miss it. Tickets are on sale now, and next week we'll be announcing details of our upcoming 4th birthday event in July. We have a couple of guests confirmed, so to stay up to date, then please follow us on whatever social media platform you choose, simply at 80s Video Shop. But feel free to come and visit us at the weekends when we're open Saturdays and Sundays from 11 till 3 p.m. So that is all for this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. So until next time, make sure to always be kind, please rewind and unwind, and I'll speak to you all real soon.